recording.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Stephanie. How are you doing today?
Fantastic.
Damn fucking tastic. I'm glad to hear it. So we have got a topic for you guys today. As you've heard, we are going to be discussing unmasking. Um, if your social media feeds are similar to ours, I'm sure you've seen the term unmasking used quite frequently lately. What does it
Mhm.
mean? But before we delve into that, we must first understand what masking is. What is masking for you? What is
Oh,
masking for you?
so masking, um, I mean, especially for me,
Yeah.
it has always been a protective mechanism.
hmm
It's
hmm
it is it's like my shield,
Your
my
bubble.
my
Yeah.
little protector shield. Masking, trying to it's basically trying to fit into the world as it is when
hmm
I'm not supposed to be in that box.
hmm hmm
And so like I can become an entirely different person
hmm
when I am masking. And yeah, it's just basically trying to fit in and create that facade on the outside to
It's so funny you mentioned that because you're like, now guys, Stephanie did not read all of my notes. I can guarantee it, right? But what you said
oh fuck
is,
no, I did not. I totally just
but
skimmed it. I'm like, yeah, that looks good.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, there's words. The words are good. I appreciate the vote of confidence there. But uh it's funny you say it that way because that's why I went ahead and asked you like what is it for you, and you're pretty fucking on the dot with what I found. Um which is that masking is the process of trying to fit into a specific and socially acceptable mold no matter what your natural instincts are. Most, if not all, neurodivergent people mask in some way at some point or points in their life. The world pushes neurodivergent people to mask so much so that it becomes a part of who they are. We spend so much of our time suppressing our natural instincts that the mask becomes part of us. Masking brings safety in a lot of situations, like you mentioned. If we live in an environment where it's not safe to stand out or we will not receive support, it's often significantly safer to mask all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you had that right on the noggin.
Yep.
Um, but of course, like masking while we kind of joke and we're like, oh yeah, we could be whatever person you want us to be. There are disadvantages to masking, especially if you're doing it a lot or constantly. It can do long-term damage to your identity, self-esteem, self-acceptance, and independence. Because masking means we're putting up with behaviors and situations we find distressing. We're acting in ways that feel unnatural, and we're constantly draining our mental battery so we don't draw attention to ourselves. Like it takes effort to mask.
So much
If you're
effort.
not, if you don't wake up with many spoons, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, it's like also, and we'll get into it a little bit more in a second about how
hmm
a lot of times it's a trauma response.
hmm hmm
And so that trauma response now every time it elevates your adrenal levels and it puts you in fight or flight. Now, if you're constantly getting bombarded by that trauma,
hmm
you're going
hmm
to constantly be in that trauma response. And then as you get older, you're going to start having a lot more medical issues because you're going to end up with adrenal fatigue.
Yeah.
Um, hence me.
And by
um,
you mean like body issues.
yeah. Uh,
It's the body not
like
functioning as it should.
literally got a referral to Mayo the other day, even though Mayo turned me down because apparently I'm too much. Um,
They can go find less.
yeah, go
Well, they
find
did.
less. Except for in this case, I'd
Yeah, no.
rather them like not.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, like I spent so much of my time masking when I was younger that I literally just burnt my body out. And now I'm dealing with the repercussions of that. So,
Yeah. Well, yeah,
um,
because masking causes extreme exhaustion, not only mentally, but physically and emotionally,
yeah.
for like everything you've just said.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it can bring on anxiety, depression, burnout, and even suicidal thoughts and behavior.
Mm-hmm.
It really does push you to your limit. But anyways, you kind of had some foreshadowing there. Why do we mask?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Trauma. And now I
Trauma,
wish I had the
trauma,
trauma, trauma, trauma,
trauma.
trauma.
Like an echo. You go trauma, 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 trauma.
Yes. Someone splice this.
Yes, please. Um,
Make
even
that
though
a
I'm
sound
like,
bite.
I mean, that's technically something I could probably do, but
That's a
we'll
lot of
see. Anyways,
work.
tell
So
us about trauma, trauma, trauma.
yes. So so trauma. And I've said this before, trauma can literally be any like it just because you hear of people like with PTSD and stuff
Mhm,
like that
mhm.
having these terrible traumas like in the war doesn't mean that your trauma that you had didn't matter.
Right.
So there's like a lot of different types of trauma. It could be as much as just as little as just someone making a like one-off comment
Mhm.
about something and it just stuck in your head.
Plug for our last episode, episode number 9 about depression. We talked more about this. That's what she's referring to. Okay.
Oh, did I? Did I talk
Yeah.
about this? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So I was
Because
talking about my
depression is
gums.
brought on by the constant traumas. We talked about big T, little t, and
Oh
why we
yeah.
hated those terms.
Did I tell the story about how someone made fun of my smile once?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, go back to
Kind of
that
the same.
last episode to find out about how I was affected by that trauma.
Oh,
um, but yeah, it can just be these tiny little things.
yeah.
And a teacher saying, you're doing something wrong because it's not the way that everybody else does it.
I have an
Um,
example for that because you specifically said teacher.
yeah,
In kindergarten, I got scolded for sneezing too loud. I now can't sneeze properly.
yeah.
Like the motion
It
happens,
like holds, you just automatically hold it in.
and sometimes I spit, but
Yeah,
nothing moves in my nose. My
weird.
sneezes are like, that's it. Because
Wow.
I like push that. I cannot make like I cannot sneeze properly. I've tried.
Wow. It's almost like you need to train your face to
Train
sneeze
my face.
properly. It's probably not healthy.
No, it's
Um,
probably not because it's not doing what a sneeze should, which is to
yeah,
like clear what's tickling it.
yeah. No, I had a hard time in
Trauma.
kindergarten. Trauma, trauma, trauma. I had a hard time in kindergarten learning to tie my shoes. Um,
Oh,
because they only taught the like one way. And for
yeah,
some reason my brain just could not get around the like twist and pull through. It just wasn't working.
yeah.
And I'd like to point out I'm 33 now. I can tie my shoes just fucking fine. But the reason that I can tie my shoes just fucking fine is because my kindergarten teacher, instead of traumatizing me like everybody else did
Yeah.
and telling me I'm you know what a loser I am for not being able to tie my shoes as a 5-year-old. um she actually was like, that's okay, we'll just teach you a different way. And
Aw.
she taught me the bunny ears one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it I did bunny ears till I was probably like 10, then I finally
Yeah.
figured out the other one. I just needed that. I think I needed some
Visual.
synapses to just
Yeah.
kind of make it a little easier
Yeah.
for it to
Yeah. Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, like that's an example of something that could have been very traumatic.
Right.
Um and it wasn't because someone actually was just like, it's
Someone
okay,
took
we
the
just
time
do
and
it a different
realized
way.
they were a good teacher
In
and adapted
1995.
their teaching to the individual student.
In 1995 in northern Wisconsin, there was a progressive teacher.
Oh, and you know what? You know what? We're about at that point, and that would be a perfect shoe-in to listen to a message from one of our sponsors, the Meditative Groomer Academy.
Oh yeah, we're in Wisconsin.
Yeah, might as well plug it. Do you want to mute us really quick?
Sure.
And I'll wave at you. Even though I realized because I unmuted myself, I could probably just say, and we're back.
Oh yeah. Okay.
That's okay. That's all right. We are on Zoom again, guys. So unfortunately for our YouTube videos or watchers, viewers, there we go, YouTube viewers, you'll just get to look at us laughing at each other, but not hear anything because we're on Zoom again to make sure that we can tell if we've been muted. Because I'm still a little, okay, I'm a lot leery of that happening again.
Yeah, it was a little scary.
Yeah, yeah. So anyways, and that's why I don't have the pretty background right now. And I'm not like a floating head in a sea of rainbow space because I'd rather have audio for you guys than a pretty background.
Yep.
So, anywho's, we're back. We talked
Maybe we'll
about
be
what
able to figure
masking was.
out that situation for YouTube though. I'll work
Oh,
on it.
yes. Yes,
So
indeed. So we talked about masking, and we never actually specifically said what unmasking was. So we learned about all this masking, and unmasking is just learning to be yourself, basically,
basically,
not
um,
through the filter of the neurotypical world.
yeah, it's yeah, pulling off the mask.
Yeah, which we
And
have examples.
yes, we do. And I would like to say, like, I don't think there's ever going to be a time, and it would be great if we could, but I don't
Yeah.
think there's ever going to be a time in our lifetime where any of us can 100% completely unmask.
Yeah,
Um, it's unfortunate, but there are some instances in which we have to mask.
right.
Um,
Or it's legitimately going to hurt you or somebody
yeah.
or hold you back.
Um, you know, even safety reasons. I mean, when I went to Florida, I took off all of my stickers on my car
Yeah.
and dressed
Because otherwise
down
you would
like,
have been like in danger.
yeah. So like I don't think for any reason, like I don't think for many reasons, I don't think there's ever going to be a time where we completely 100% unmask. So a lot
Yeah.
of unmasking is finding the things that you don't have to unmask anymore and
Yeah.
allowing those to be unmasked. And
Yeah.
you can still keep whatever mask you feel necessary.
Right.
And so it's finding that in between. It will
Hmm.
get, it gets a little like difficult sometimes because, you might unmask a little too far and then you have to pull back and,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a learning experience.
But that's okay. And we will
So,
talk more about how like tips for unmasking later on. Now we're basically just like, how do we do this? Because this is such a big thing.
yeah.
Um, so let's go through
Um
some of the
but yeah,
examples of
I just
unmasking.
want to I did
Oh,
want to say one thing.
yeah, yeah,
So imagine unmasking not so much as like taking the mask off, so much as that mask has been, not only has that mask been glued on, but like you have like 60 of them on top of that, and you
uh,
have to slowly start peeling it off.
yeah, layer by
And
layer, like an onion.
yeah, and like some of it you might be like, hey, I actually kind of like that way, so I'm gonna leave that.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and so just remember it's a process.
Yes, yes.
I just feel like we need to make sure everybody realize that it's not instantaneous. You don't just
Oh, yeah,
wake
no,
up one day
and
and go, I'm unmasked now.
no, the last section goes through some really good steps.
Cool.
Um, but first, like more about like what is unmasking. So let's do some of the examples. So what are some of the things that you've done Or we can go through the list or both.
Well, actually, some of the things that I've done, one of them is right at the top of our list, which is
That's what I was thinking
living in
of. Yep.
public.
Yep.
That is one thing that took me a really long time to realize. I was like, I didn't realize I was even masking how much stimming I was doing
Yeah.
until I started to unmask it, and all of a sudden I'm like, wow, I do a lot of stimming.
Yeah.
Um, so like you'll probably see, like, if anybody ever sees me at shows, I do this like
Yeah.
wagging, like shaking my hands a lot.
Yeah.
Usually it's more down at my, like, at chest level, not up
Right.
at my
Right.
head. But like
But
I
for
shake my
sake of the
hands a lot.
camera.
Yeah. So all of the people who are watching and not listening on YouTube, you just watch my hands wiggle. But yeah, like I do that a lot. Just it like I just need to kind of get it out, you know?
Yeah.
um so like that was one that was a big one for me, and
Yeah.
it was really scary to start allowing it.
Right.
But not only have I not been noticed by strangers, but even like my husband, I mentioned it to him one day and he was like, huh, I didn't even realize that you had started doing it.
Uh,
It had
yeah,
just become like a thing that I did, and it didn't bother him, you know?
because like the people that care don't care.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
like all of my friends, like,
And strangers really don't care as much about you as you think they might.
oh God, yeah. Like I've, I don't even get looks.
Yeah.
Everybody's so like in their own fucking world.
Mhm.
And like, I know that there are people who are paying attention to me, and
Yeah.
at this point I kind of feel like it's when I accidentally am undressing in front of an open window in my own home, and it's like, well, it was your fault for looking, like.
Yeah. Don't look. Keep walking.
Like, if you didn't want to see it, then you shouldn't look. Like, I don't know what you want me to do. I'm in my house, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
um so like if people don't want to see me stimming, then don't look.
Right.
And I haven't had any problems. I am prepared for if somebody does say
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
where I can just be like, just don't look at me.
I'll be like, sorry you feel that way, but
Yeah.
not sorry for doing it.
Yeah. So,
What about clothing? These next two talk about clothing. So wearing clothes that feel comfortable and wearing clothes that incorporate special interests or colors you enjoy, not just what's considered fashionable.
yes. This one actually I recently had a, like, kind of a breakthrough
Give it
actually.
up. Tell us.
Um I have been on a mission to find fucking clothes that were comfortable and I thought I looked cute in, and it has been a rough road. I finally
Yeah,
found, like, I'm finally on the, like, the right track, and like for the most part I get all of my clothes from MeUndies because they're super
soft.
comfy.
Yeah.
Um and like I even was able to figure out like some dress clothes now
Hmm.
that I
Hmm.
can wear. It took a while. I may have looked like hot garbage for a while there. Um, but in the spring, I went through my closet and threw away anything I haven't worn in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of stuff. And
Yeah.
it really narrowed down my closet, but I was just like, wow, I hated wearing these clothes. And
Yeah.
I kept buying them because I kept trying to find clothes that I liked,
Right.
and then
Right.
I hated it, and I always ended up going back to the same fucking outfit every time. And now I just kind of gave in, and I'm like, I'm just gonna wear the same outfit all the time, and I have
Right.
basically my uniform that I wear all the time.
And then I like the second part, not only the comfortable, because also too, so I have this pair of shorts that doesn't quite fit me and it makes me uncomfortable. And instead of worrying about, oh, I need to lose 10 pounds to fit these shorts, my mission now is to find a larger pair of shorts
Yeah.
because the body doesn't need to fit the clothes need to fit the body.
Yeah.
And I don't like how I feel in it, and it presses on my stomach a little too much, which is, I mean, uncomfortable, I feel like normally, let alone like I don't get pain, but I just don't like things pressing over any of like my old incisions or anything like that. Or
Yeah.
even just pressing into my stomach is uncomfortable.
Yeah. I
Um,
have to most hoodies, I have to cut like the neck because
mm.
I had my thoroid surgery. So I
Oh,
have the scar like right here.
yeah, and it's
And you
uncomfortable
can't
to,
see it, which is kind of cool. But
yeah,
like um I can't stand like most hoodies.
right,
Um
right.
in fact, the Minnesota one that I got, I the other day had to cut it. I'm like, yeah, I love this sweatshirt so much. I'm gonna
Yeah,
go cut it open, and so I
it's
did.
Superman, that shit.
So I have that. I have a little V there that's all
Yeah,
like ripped up. I don't give a shit. I like it. It's
if you're
comfy.
comfortable. Yep, yep. And like when I was a lot younger, it was kind of impressed onto me that like clothing needed to match.
Oh yeah,
And then that age-old shit, like one of my grandmothers was still very much like me as like a 10-year-old, and she'd be like, "It's after Labor Day, why are you wearing white?"
yeah.
Like, bitch,
I was about to say something about that. Yeah. Uh, what was the other one that I was thinking about the other day? Matching was one that is
yeah,
definitely a
like
problem for
colors
me.
have to go together. And like, sure, for a design, yes. But if
Mm.
I want to wear brightly colored clothes that clash, well, I'm gonna walk
That
around like a damn highlighter.
yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I remember because I used to wear like in elementary school, my favorite outfit was I had a pair of like bright pink sweatpants
yeah.
that were super comfy, and I had like six Favre jerseys, Brett Favre jerseys. I really wasn't a fan of football even then, but the jersey was so comfortable. I wore I just wore a different jersey every day.
And just for anybody who doesn't know, the Packers color scheme is predominantly green with yellow
Yes,
highlighting.
green and yellow. So it
Green
was
and
the green and
yellow plus
yellow with
hot
the bright
pink.
bright hot pink. So I remember my aunt yelling at me a lot for like, what the fuck are you wearing? And I'm like,
Oh,
it's comfy.
yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. So yeah, you don't have to wear what's fashionable either.
Right.
Um
Like if your clothing closet is literally just the same shorts and five different colors and the same shirt, maybe all even in the same color,
mhm.
who cares? You
Oh
own
yeah.
a washer, right? Like you wash your clothes, like nobody cares.
Yeah.
Be
I mean,
comfortable.
90% of the time you're gonna see me in me undies sweatpants and either a me undies shirt or um one of my shirts that I designed
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's pretty much what I wear.
Yeah.
That's my closet and I am very happy with it.
Yeah.
Um so that was another thing is like things that incorporate special interests and stuff. I love wearing graphic tees.
Yeah.
Um it's one of those I think I've always liked because I'm shy. I try
Mhm.
to put a lot of like my personality on my
On the
sleeve
shirt
kind of thing. Like I
kind of
put it
speaks
on
for
me,
you. Yeah.
like even like my arm, like
Yeah.
my tattoos are even just like it's I like when people say like, "Oh, I love your tattoo," because I can be like, "Oh, like
You
I
share
have a
this
thing to talk
interest.
about with you,"
Yeah.
you know? So like that's a big thing for me is wearing like graphic tees and stuff cuz
Right.
like to me it's like a signal. Like I'm sending up a smoke signal for all of the me's.
Well, because I had a lot of human rights shirts. So I had the ones that would say like love is love or freedom of love or
Hmm.
what or human rights whatever. Like I had a Black Lives Matter that was, well, it said, I think it said together we rise and had like the three different fists on it and everything.
Yeah.
Because I don't want you to fucking talk to me if you don't think people should be like if you don't think there's a problem, because we're just going to
Yeah.
clash on so many things.
Yeah. So,
Um, but anyways, moving on from clothing, other ways we can unmask.
yes.
We can avoid eye contact that feels uncomfortable. That is a large, large one that I've been doing, where I
Yes.
will just solidly like I'll meet, I'll meet, make sure that you're listening to me, but then I'm not looking. And that's been insanely just relieving,
Yeah.
not
No,
staring into someone's eyes.
I've been finding that too. I have found, because people are very much weird about the eye
Yes.
contact thing. Like professionally, a lot of people get really bothered if you don't make eye contact. Um, so like with those types of things, I will tell people, "Hey, I have a hard time concentrating on what I'm saying when I'm looking at you. I'm going to do something with my hands while I'm talking because then I can concentrate better."
Right.
Um,
Right.
so like that's one of those things where I tell people this is the accommodation that I'm going to have.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, then we're not going to work together basically.
No,
Um,
exactly.
you know, I even like
Well,
I went out to eat the other day with a friend I hadn't seen in years, and one of the first things I said is I'm like, I just want you to know I'm going to be looking around a lot, but I am listening.
yeah.
Like
That,
this helps.
that ties in exactly to the next one, which is giving yourself permission to be blunt and direct.
Yes.
Just communicate.
Hmm. And that does not mean be an asshole.
No, no, that does not ju
Like I
condone or
see that happen
justify.
a lot where people are like, I'm just blunt. And I'm like, no, you're being an asshole.
Yeah.
Just because you can be blunt and straightforward and still be respectful.
Yes.
And if you struggle to find words for that, there's things like Goblin Tools. If they'd like to sponsor me, that'd be great. Someone contact Goblin Tools. But you can use the Goblin Tools, like I don't remember what it's called, the
Formalizer,
translator thing,
judge.
or formalizer. Yeah, so you can use the formalizer to like put in exactly what you're thinking, whatever blunt thing that you want to tell someone, put it in there. And then you just change the settings to whatever you want it to be, and then it will translate it to something that's respectful.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
if you want to understand why that's respectful, you can put it in the judge and the judge will explain it to you. Um
Yes.
so like I would like to make that a big thing. Just because you are blunt and direct doesn't mean you have to be an asshole. You still need to be
This is
respectful
the most
while being
important
blunt.
morsel, the most important of the
Yeah.
entire episode today.
um but yeah, like being like direct is one thing that I've started to really like doing. It helps me with my unmasking a lot too.
Mhm.
'Cause like I said, I can be like, or if someone's talking to me, I need to do something with my hands,
Yeah.
and I can keep myself thinking. And so like when people are telling me something, I'll be like, hey, keep talking.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be doing this so I can listen better.
Right.
um and people are really like cool with that. um
Yeah. Because then they're not automatically assuming you're being disrespectful and not listening. You've
yeah,
explained, and they're like, oh, okay.
yeah. I um i would like to say, if anybody has some ideas for how to handle this type of stuff with police officers, I
Ooh.
would like some advice.
Ooh, that's a good
um
one.
I because of my issues with eye contact, um and a lot of the problem with my eye contact I've gotten trauma from, because my egg donor used to, like, I would tell her the truth about
But you
something.
looking away makes her think you're lying.
Yeah, automatically that was a lie, and so I could never tell, like in my head I could never tell the truth.
Okay.
So like I had a really hard time, I have a really hard time with police officers because they are another authority figure,
Hmm.
where I'm like, I I actually am terrified of getting pulled over by police,
Hmm.
because I can't stop myself. Like I can't mask at that point because I'm so anxious about them being there
Hmm.
that I lose my ability to mask.
Right.
almost completely. And so I can't look them in the eye. I I'm constantly like aware of my hands. I can't make words. Um
I
and
wonder if we could make you up a little card to
I
like have
was
in your
kind of
wallet.
thinking of making like a little card that I can like
Like,
hand it
hey,
to
my
them.
name is Stephanie and I am autistic. These are the ways I cope.
Yeah. Um that might be an idea. It's
Hmm.
cuz yeah, and like I know that cops are supposed to be there to protect us, and I think that there are good cops out there, but
Yes,
there's also bad cops.
indeed.
And
And it doesn't help that the entire system is corrupt as well.
correct. And these bad cops are what I'm afraid of. I've run
Yeah.
into some shitty cops that treated me really shitty,
Yeah.
and it was all because of the way I coped.
Hmm.
Um, which, I am not lucky enough to be super hot. So the crying thing works
Oh,
backwards for me.
oh,
If I start crying, I would never cry in front of a cop on purpose, like to
yeah.
try to get out of a ticket.
But you're
But
just
like
so stressed that tears are coming
I get
anyways.
so like stressed and upset, and I'm usually upset at myself for doing something that got me pulled over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, oh my god, I'm such an idiot. I can't believe I just did this.
Right.
Um and so like it's uh like I lost track of what I was saying.
Oh, because you're
Um
so stressed,
yeah, I'm so like yeah,
you're
I just get
crying
so
anyways.
I get so stressed I start crying, and then they think I'm trying to get out of the ticket, where really I'm just stressed. I'm
Oh,
just so anxious. So like yeah, I haven't figured out how to handle when I get pulled over by cops. Uh I use my cruise control a lot for this reason. I
yeah,
am a wonderful driver because I don't want to get pulled over.
exactly. Exactly.
Um, when I need to be, at least. I can be a shitty driver also, but
Anyways, we'll move down the list instead of incriminate ourselves now.
yeah.
We're not gonna over apologize for being ourselves. That is a giant way of unmasking. Is just stop with the oh sorry, oh don't apologize for yourself. I'm like
Yep.
preaching to myself. I'm looking at my face in the Zoom right now, like, don't apologize for yourself.
No, I've been trying to get better actually at uh telling people you don't have to apologize.
Yeah.
Um,
Stop saying sorry. It's okay.
yeah. Uh, because I know I'm one of those people that says I'm sorry a lot.
Yeah.
Especially sorry.
Oh,
Um,
sorry. Oh,
sorry.
oh,
Sorry.
oh.
I'm just gonna scooch right behind you there. Uh,
Marcia said sorry every
oh.
time, and I loved it. And I almost didn't catch it. Just this little side note here. She had said like a sentence and like so fluidly, so quickly, I didn't even almost hear it. She said A at the end of the sentence. I was like, it's real.
I love her.
Me too.
I think we need to get her on here at some point.
I think we should.
We need to get back to interviewing people.
Yes, indeed.
Um,
Okay. Anyways,
but
anyways. So
yeah,
don't apologize for being yourself.
yes. And yeah, so I have a hard time with apologizing to myself a lot. So I've started to, because I know what a struggle it is, I tell other people you don't need to apologize.
In hopes
Um,
that it'll,
eventually it might stick with me, and hopefully it helps those people to not over apologize anymore.
right?
Um,
We can also, let's see, respond genuinely to a question instead of overthinking what the correct response should be.
yes. Uh, excuse me. That is definitely a big thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
um, I don't have as much issues with it as I used to. Um, I think enough therapy, I've learned enough coping mechanisms.
Right.
I've told myself I've told myself to stop overthinking enough times, and why asking myself why are you thinking this far into it? Just answer the
Right.
question.
Right.
I eventually kick this one, but yeah, it is an issue.
What
Um
about explaining to others when you need to leave a social situation? Like with no shame, like being able to leave without feeling like you should still
I
be there.
still struggle with this.
Yeah.
Um so one of the things is, so like I used to just push myself through shit
Yeah.
just to avoid having to like disappoint someone,
Right.
you know? Um and then it became um like I could not handle it anymore,
Hmm.
and I would not fake, I would get sick. Um
Okay. Yeah.
my brain would say, "Oh, you're not going to leave unless you're sick." And so it would make me sick.
Okay. Yeah.
Like I would get like I would feel physically ill. And
Yes.
I was so like my brain wanted to get out of there so badly that it was like, fine, pretend you're sick.
Be sick.
Be sick. So like that is definitely one that like it can be really damaging to
Right.
people.
Right.
Um and like it's really hard because you sometimes also get FOMO,
Yeah.
but that's why I've also learned to just do less things.
Yeah.
So now like, and
You don't have to do all the
COVID
things.
helped a lot, because I learned that I could just pick and choose which things I do.
Yeah.
And at the time I was able to just be like, oh, that seems like it would be too dangerous with the COVID, or like I'm supposed to see my parents next week, so
Right.
with the
Right.
COVID, like
The
like it
COVID.
felt better for a while to just be able to blame COVID.
Right.
But now I could just be like, no,
No.
I'm not gonna come. Like
Yeah.
I'll say it nice, but like I don't want to
But
do
you're
that.
good about just like saying, not taking stuff on, not
Yeah.
saying
So
yes
I
to
only do
everything.
the things that I want to do.
Yeah.
Um so that uh that's gotten better,
Hmm.
but it's still really hard to just be like, nope, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
um
exactly.
but yeah, if I'm doing less things, then I can spend more time at the things that I do.
Right.
So that helps.
This one kind of ties into, I mean, it's not like it's redundant, but it all, relates. Like letting your body move naturally instead of trying to match what others do,
Mm-hmm.
doing things that make you comfortable, even if they're considered awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Tell others about your sensory needs. A lot of people who know me will grab me a plastic plate and utensil if they have it because they know I cannot do metal on ceramic or porcelain or whatever the hell.
Yep.
So yeah.
Unless they're like me and they forget those things and until you come back again, and then luckily I have a husband that remembers these things.
Well, and because also too, if you hand me like metal, I'll be like, "Do you have something plastic?" And
Yeah.
now that I camp out of my car, like I know I have stuff, worst case.
Yep.
Um,
Get a lot of use out of the Harry Potter plates now.
Indeed. So ultimately, like this all falls down to being the same person you are alone with others.
Yes. Also, taking up space.
Ah, be loud. Take up space.
Yes. Like that is a legit thing. Like I I am a big person.
Hmm.
And especially because I'm a big person, I have especially learned to mask in situations where big people don't fit.
Hmm.
So I have had to like the amount of times that I have sat uncomfortable, super uncomfortably, like on a plane because I was doing one of these things and like squeezing myself
Oh,
together, where the skinny white guy next to me who needed half his fucking seat was doing one of these things with his
yeah.
arms all the way out. He had his arm in my ribs.
Jeez.
And I was too much of a fucking wimp to just be like, no, I'm taking up the space.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's been that's one I'm still working on.
Yeah.
uh, you're really good at that. um
Thank
like
you.
yeah, and like that's a compliment.
Okay.
Like what did I when you oh,
Oh
meg
God.
spread you meg spread.
Oh, Meg spread. Oh, fuck yes. I am not. I'll cross my legs if that's what feels comfortable at that point, but I'm gonna be sprawling all over whatever I can.
Yeah. um no, that like the first time we hung out, like that was one of the things that I remember the most, is that
Yeah.
you meg spread, and I'm
I
like,
take up the
man,
space.
like they really are willing to take up the space, like the space you deserve.
Yes.
Like it's not like you're taking up extra, you're
Right.
taking up your space.
Right. No, that's been a long time practiced. So
Yeah, well, you've done really well with it.
thank you. Thank you. So we've gone through many, many, many examples of unmasking. So I think it's about time we take a break and listen to a message from one of our sponsors. And we're back.
Yay.
So, as you guys have come to know, we usually have a Stephanie's rabbit hole to explore. And we're going to talk about some different ways we can unmask, not necessarily the examples of unmasking, but kind of more the process behind it. So, Stephanie, take it away.
All right. So first of all, while you were talking, I thought of another stim that I do, that I do
Ooh,
openly,
yeah.
is my happy wiggles.
Oh, yes.
Like
I do that almost every
happy
time I
wiggles.
eat.
Huh?
I do it almost every time I eat. I'm
Me
just like,
too.
food.
I'm eating, I'm like, food. uh which is great. Everybody's actually anybody who's noticed it actually has started to like think it's adorable.
Oh, yeah, no, people think it's cute. Like, oh,
And
you're
I'm
doing your
like,
little
oh,
happy
I'm
dance.
cute. For once in my life, I'm cute. So, um, I just got distracted because I was doing a happy dance.
Oh, no
Um,
worries.
and I thought of it. So, um, talking about how we can unmask.
Yes.
Um, I have a class about building systems,
Hmm.
which is for neurodivergent people to help them live life comfortably.
Right.
And my process of doing that is basically the same process that I use for unmasking.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, building systems is in a way unmasking.
Okay.
Um, you're saying, okay, everybody else's system, you know, that they use doesn't work
Right.
for me.
Right.
So I'm gonna
Make my
do my
own.
own system.
Yeah.
And so I'll go over the steps
Yes.
that we use. So the first one is recognizing the struggle exists, or recognizing that you're masking something.
Right. Right.
Um, so you know, in my system building process, it's, oh, I'm having a hard time with this,
Right.
you know, but this can be also like, I really, really, like with eye contact, like you
Yeah.
realize I hate making eye contact.
Yeah.
And you might not realize how much you hated, like,
Until you start not doing it.
yeah, and you might not even realize like that you were. And
Right.
that's the thing, is like you have to, it's part of the process is figuring that out.
Yeah.
And so saying like, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll see, someone talk about something on TikTok. So someone talked about um eye contact
Yeah.
on TikTok, and I went, I don't don't think I've had a problem with eye contact. And that's when I go into the second step, which is soul searching. Um, so soul searching is basically like really looking back and like thinking about what um like what your what past traumas may have caused you
Right.
to stop doing that, and like realizing it's like really just like going back and thinking about like, oh yeah, I did have this struggle and then I started doing this, and you're like, okay, this is the coping mechanism that I
Yeah.
ended up having
Yeah.
was this masking. And so
Right.
you have to kind of break it down first.
Yeah.
So like kind of like you if you wanted to like build a house where there was already a broken down house,
Right.
you got to take the house down first
Yeah. You can't just
and
smack
start
it on
from
top.
you got to start back at the basics. So you have to deconstruct that masking that you were doing
Hmm.
that caused you, and why it caused you to mask that way.
Right.
um Figuring out what trauma it was that
Yeah.
did that to you, whether it be one instance thing or a constant barragement of it. Like,
Right.
you know, it might have been for someone, it might have been just like a couple teachers like yelled at them for not making eye contact, where, like me, I would literally get grounded for lying when I wasn't. Like,
Right.
um, and it could be, it could have been beaten for making eye contact. Like
Yeah.
there's a whole
Yeah.
range of people, and all of that trauma is valid.
Yes.
But you have to kind of break down that you have to break down the ruins to start back over. And
Right.
so you got to do that soul searching, and it's gonna hurt.
Hmm.
um a lot of people, I know, especially in the witchy community, they call it shadow work.
Shadow work. Yep.
um I just called it soul searching because that's what makes sense, that what works for my brain.
Yeah.
um but yeah, like I've had to spend a lot of time deconstructing my past to try to figure out how to fix my future. um so that's going to be one of the biggest ones.
Yeah.
The next step is naming the struggle.
Hmm.
In this case, it's naming the um
Like the masking.
yeah, naming the mask, I guess.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, just kind of having a name for it. There is um actual research out there that shows that when we have a label for things, it's easier for us to understand.
Yeah.
um Especially verbal learners, they really need to have that word. um so like, you need to have a tangible thing to be like, this is the mask that I'm trying to get rid of.
Right.
um and like, yes, it might have like some gray area around it, but you need to have something tangible there.
Right.
um so naming your mask, um identifying what's holding you back. Again, that's thinking about that, what trauma it was and what social norms
Right.
have told you. um you know in when we're building systems, a lot of times we're trying to like, it's to build systems for organization, and like
Right.
the way the rest of the world organizes doesn't make sense to your brain.
Yeah.
So like, you need to see why, like what about that is holding you back.
Hmm. Hmm.
um and then
And then
and then and then you need to blow up the rules.
blow up the rules.
So all those things, that little box of social norms that
Burn the
is
fuck
holding you
out.
back, just blow it the fuck up.
Yeah.
Maybe before you blow it up, just take out anything that, keep anything that might get you or someone else hurt
Yeah.
or be illegal, just for
Yeah.
legal
We
reasons,
don't
I should
condone
say.
illegal activities here.
We do not condone illegal activities. But yeah, other than things that will hurt people, including yourself
Right.
or animals,
Yes.
or um
Bring
You'll get,
harm unto no living thing.
yes, no harm.
And don't break laws.
Yes, and don't break laws. So, um, outside of those things,
Hmm.
blow up the rest of the rules because it doesn't matter.
Blow up the rules with conditions.
Yes. And this is another thing too, where like your blow up the rules can also depend on the situation too.
Yeah.
Obviously those two rules that we talked about should stay there all the time.
Yes. Yes.
um, but outside of that, it might be like, you know, with doctors, I tend to mask a little bit more because they tend to not take me seriously.
Right.
Um, or, in a professional situation, there might be some things that you want to keep in there. If you're traveling, and you're going to be in a different culture,
Yeah.
then, you might want to like, even when I went to Scotland, we looked up like cultural things that we had to know about. So like
Right.
their tipping is different. Like
Yeah.
all those things are like things that we wanted to make sure we were doing, even though it was still masking, but it was more of a respectful mask. Like, I respect your culture.
Ooh, there you go. Hold on. Okay, speak.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. I don't know
Okay.
what just happened, but I heard like respecting culture.
Okay. Well, you want to respect culture.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, just like, there's things that you might, little rules that you might still keep.
Right.
And so it should really depend on the situation, and you can keep as many as you think you need. Um,
Exactly.
but for the most part, you're blowing up the fucking rules
Yeah.
because the rules don't matter.
Exactly.
um, and then you're gonna make your own rules.
Hmm.
So you might have those rules that you kept that are social norms that you think should still be respected.
Right.
Um, and so you keep those. And then you can make your own rules about how you want to live your life in the world.
Like if
Um,
I see something rainbow, my rule is to buy it. I joke, but I'm pretty damn serious. So,
yeah. um, but yeah, so making your own rules, and then you're gonna form a system on your terms.
mm-hmm.
So this is form your mask, I guess, your unmasked mask, I guess, on your terms.
Right.
Um, and then you need to do a trial run and tweak the
Yes.
plan.
Yes.
Um, because sometimes the first way you do it, it doesn't work for you.
It doesn't feel right. It doesn't like
Yeah,
produce the results you're looking for.
yeah. Maybe, whatever tweaks. Maybe one of the rules that you kept, or maybe one of the rules that you blew up is actually something you want to keep. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, like this is a process. So you are gonna it's unfortunately trial by fire. You
Right.
gotta just kind of
Right.
try it. But just do it in little bits. That's why you don't have to just you're not ripping off your mask.
Right.
Um, so take it in little pieces, even if it's just, hey, I want to unmask in front of this friend.
Yeah.
Um, I've started doing that more because I have always been like a very like private person.
Right.
Um, I never learned to talk about my feelings. I had to
Hmm.
compartmentalize
There
mine,
you go. Yep.
um, while taking in everybody else's,
Right.
because I basically was an adult at like 7.
Hmm. Hmm.
I know it's hard to believe now, but I wasn't. I was literally caring for my sister at like 7.
Yeah.
Um, and so like, um, it
Words.
yeah. I was basically saying like it's a process, and like
Yeah.
you got to kind of trust the process. Do it in little bits. Like if you take it in little bite-sized pieces, it's a lot easier.
Hmm.
But oh, I was talking about like friends. Like I've been
Yeah.
picking, because I did learn to not talk about my feelings a lot. I got pretty good at unmasking with my husband, and then I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, I need to start doing it with my friends. Um, Come in, Meg. Um, Meg was
Oh,
actually one of the first ones because you kind of came into my life just at the right moment where
oh,
I
nice.
could be unmasked in front of you basically from the beginning. Like it wasn't
And
like
that's why I don't know of any different because
yeah, so it wasn't like there
it was
wasn't a
the aquarium,
transition. Yeah.
the aquarium in Atlanta. When you
Yeah.
saw me also geeking out, you were like,
Yeah. And so like you kind of were like my little stepping stone of like, oh,
oh,
like I
yeah,
can be open with my friends. And so
yeah.
then like after a while I started adding in more friends where I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, this
Hmm.
is I'm going to concentrate on this friend, you
Right.
know? Um and like it's picking certain friends like that I want to be extra close with,
Hmm.
like really working on that. Um
Yeah.
and trying to be more open with them. And it is a little harder with some of the ones that you've known for a while. Like,
Right.
um, those are the ones where I feel like I explain myself a lot more.
Yeah.
Where like random strangers, I don't explain things as much.
Yeah.
But like I will, with my friends, I try to be more like, I'm telling you this because it's so new, like they're not
Yeah.
used to me being like this. So I'll be like, hey, I'm telling you this because I'm trying to get better at this.
Right.
But I'm gonna do, this is how I feel or whatever.
Right. Right.
um and it's if you each time I do this with a friend too, I will literally reach out, and I actually and one of the things that we have up here is my book recommendation.
Oh, yes.
I
Yes.
send this book. I When I decide on a friend I want to open up to more, I send this book to them and say, hey, I would really appreciate it if you would read this because I am in the process of unmasking my autism.
Right.
And I think this will help you understand what I'm going through a little more so that we can be on a better level
Right.
communicate.
Right.
Um and each time they're like, cool, thank you for like opening up to me. And it's
Yeah.
been like really helpful to like get that going. It's still a slow process because like
Yeah.
we're still I still feel like I'm kind of doing that little dance of like I don't want to come on too strong, but like also I don't want to be too like
Reserved.
yeah. And so
Yeah.
like it's still practice, but like each friend I do this with, like I just keep adding one more person.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna concentrate on you right now.
You are the flower that I will nourish.
Yeah, basically. That's a I love that. Thank you.
You're
But
welcome.
yes, so the book
Yes.
recommendation.
Tell us about the book.
It's called Unmasking Autism: The Power of Embracing Our Hidden Neurodiversity.
Hmm.
And it's by Dr. Devon Price,
Hmm.
um, a trans man who is autistic and ADHD.
Okay.
Um, and I mentioned that he's a trans man because he does talk about it a lot
Right.
in relation to this because that was a lot of the unmasking process as well. Um, so if you are also trans, it might be even more helpful for you. Um, and when I say you, I mean listeners. Oh, I lost Meg. Oh, there we go. You
Oh, I'm
froze
here.
for a
I'm here.
second.
No, no worries. I'm here.
All
I'm
right.
listening raptly.
And it's a really good book. This is
Yeah.
like I said, I send this each little friend that I decide I want to open up to. I've started sending them this book and explaining like this explains a lot of what I'm going through so
Right.
that you can understand what I'm going through and then we can have better communication about it.
Yeah.
Um and it's really great. Like listen to it yourself too,
Hmm.
obviously.
Hmm.
It really helps to like listen to his um ways of doing things and how it's changed his life. And he talks about like the struggles but also the like um it talks about all the ups and downs and stuff like that, and it's a really good read, so I
Okay.
suggest that one.
Yes, yes.
um and yeah, like it is one where it's a good one to send to people if you want them to understand what you're going through. So
Right. It's
yeah.
awesome. Good deal. Then I think that means that
Oh,
we can go. Oh,
sorry.
oh, oh,
I did
oh.
have one more part.
Okay, okay,
With that, uh Dr. Price does talk about their way or his way of doing unmasking, like process is more of think back to your childhood to 5 different memories that stand out
okay.
and then break that down basically to why did they stand out, what kind of trauma was it causing, and um like what is your what is it that you were masking basically.
Right,
So it's kind of along the same lines, but it is kind of a cool idea of just being like, okay, these 5 memories stand out, so let's break them down, you know.
right.
um and you can do that with your therapist if you have one, because
Mm-hmm,
sometimes
mm-hmm.
that helps. I've definitely been like, okay, I know I'm masking for this situation. How
Right.
do I fix it? And we talk about it and we break it down and figure it, we go through the same process. Um, Listen, most of the stuff that I talk about in my classes is stuff that I learned from my therapist. So
Yeah.
after this long of going to the same therapist, I can basically like quote her verbatim in most situations. um I like sometimes I'll have a problem and I have a therapy session in my head with her because I just know what she's gonna say. um
Right. Right. Well,
so
that's good though.
yeah, and I don't have the PDA that I have with other people.
Right.
um and when I say PDA, I mean the
We're not
pathological
talking
demand
public
avoidance.
displays of affection. It's
Yeah. But I have pathological demand avoidance where like some people, like my husband, will tell me, give me good advice, great advice, and I can recognize it's great advice,
yeah.
but I still can't listen to it.
Yeah.
Whenever it comes to business stuff, I ask, I usually ask you and him, uh, if you have like really like solid advice, then I usually would go with you. But like if you're like, well, maybe that, if you're not sure,
Yeah.
then he will sometimes give me the best advice ever. I end up messaging Mary every single time still, and Mary tells me the exact same thing that John does, and I'm like, yeah, that works.
Oh my God.
I don't know why.
That's funny.
But thank God for Mary.
Right? Oh my God. What
I
would
try
Mary
not to use
do?
that too often, but like
WWMD, what would Mary do?
what would Mary do? But yeah, I've gotten to know my therapist so well that I can just have a therapy session in my head with her.
That's some good value there. That's some good
Yeah.
oh fuck, what's that word? ROI. Return, that's some good return on investment right there.
Yeah.
But anyways, let's go ahead and take our last break, listen to our last message from our last sponsor.
Yep.
And we're back.
I'm back. I'm an adult.
Totally. Totally. If you want to know why Stephanie is such an adult, you'll have to watch this on YouTube and look for the last commercial break where we are mum, but still you can see us and see what we're doing. And some of us were being goofy.
I sure was.
Nothing wrong with that,
This is what happens when you have to be an adult at 7. When you're
right?
33 years old, you forget about being an adult.
You're like, been there, done that.
I did
Um,
that. I'm I'm just gonna go back. I missed that childhood thing,
right?
so
Right. But no, so this last section, we're going to talk about some really good like steps and tips for unmasking. Um, so I can say one and then I feel like you will have commentary.
oh, I'm sure I will.
I'm sure you will too. So first, like you've mentioned already, start when you're ready and go at your own pace. If you're in any kind of unsafe work or living situation, keep that mask up for your protection or
It's not a
possibly
race, it's a marathon.
there you
Sorry.
go. If we ever have any question about our safety at any time, we can always put the mask back on. However, I will say it is not as easy as flipping a light switch.
Mm-hmm.
And aside from your personal safety, you just may not feel ready to deal with all of the emotional and mental work involved in unmasking because it's not like Stephanie said, you don't just wake up and like, huh, I'm unmasked today.
Yeah,
There's work.
there is. I had a thing I was about to add into that.
Aw,
Um,
go at your own pace.
uh, sorry.
Safety,
Yeah, with
or you're not
personal
prepared.
safety, like, oh, you were saying like it's a lot harder to put the mask back on.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and like, yeah, and especially depending on how deep that trauma is, it can be
Hmm.
really hard once you unmask to put
Go
the
back
mask
to
back
that.
on.
Yeah,
So, definitely when you're thinking about these things, try to evaluate the safety ahead of time if you
right.
can. Um, but yeah, and also I forgot to mention earlier
Hmm.
another thing that happens that tends to happen with people who mask, um, especially for uh big T is it big T trauma?
Yeah, for like those are big T is what they considered the large one-off events.
Oh, no, I think it's little T trauma is
So
more
yeah,
like the
little
chronic
T was
trauma.
like the death by paper cuts was the example.
Yeah. So like people who have had a lot of chronic trauma will sometimes also have dissociative issues at that point too.
Oh, that's right. We had
Um
said acute trauma and chronic trauma.
yeah. And so like the dissociation is really hard to combat. I spent most of my 20s dissociating, but now I don't dissociate very often, but when I do, um I don't always notice it until after the
Yeah.
fact.
Yeah.
Like I can't catch myself. So I like certain things like going to the grocery store, I dissociate completely for that and I can't control it.
Yeah.
Um I don't know why. I haven't figured it out yet. I guess I need to do more shadow work on it. um but just remember, yeah, take your time. It's going to be, especially if you have a lot of chronic trauma, it's
Yeah.
going to be some time to work through.
Yeah. So the next thing is masking doesn't mean you're being fake.
Exactly.
Whatever the reason, remember that choosing not to unmask right now does not mean you're being fake. It just means that you're doing your best to protect yourself in a society that wasn't built for you.
Yes. Um, I mean, I've talked about in the past about how our brains are closer to the hunter gatherers than like industrial brains
Hmm. Hmm.
um and brains now, like neurotypical brains. So like
There we go. You're back.
can't hear me?
Now I do.
Okay.
Okay,
Had a
we're good.
moment. All
Yeah,
right.
so industrial brains versus hunter-gatherer brain.
Yeah, the hunter gatherer brains. I mean, we tend to be it's we tend to be more in that fight or flight, that trauma response. Um, so like it is, even if it doesn't seem like you're protecting yourself for like a good reason, your brain thinks you are.
Yeah.
Like you can rationally be like, it's really dumb that I'm masking this because I shouldn't have to mask it. But like your
Right.
brain, your logical brain and the primitive brain that's like
Yeah.
controlling things are very different things.
Yes.
So always keep in mind that like it it's literally your brain and your body is like when you go into a trauma response is your brain and your body are going into basically automatic.
Yeah.
um you're not fully in control.
Right.
um and you can try to learn to gain control, but like we said, it takes time with this
Mhm.
unmasking.
Right.
So, you know, do what works best for you. Which I think is the main thing that we've been talking about the whole
Well,
thing. Like,
yes,
do what works for you.
exactly. And in the meantime, reach out for support and be gentle with yourself. There will be days when unmasking feels beautiful and easy, and there will be days when it all just feels like too much.
Mm-hmm.
On those days, that's when you need to be especially gentle with yourself. Care for yourself however you need to, and try listening to your body to help you understand what might help you. Practice getting good at self care, but also have loved ones you can turn to when unmasking your autism or your neurodiversity just feels like too much. Above all else, remember that you are never alone in your unmasking experience because we are all in this together. And together we're stronger. And that's why we have our Facebook support group. You can always message one of us or post in there. And yeah.
Yeah, and um I think one of the biggest things, especially as you're unmasking, you really need to learn to be gentle with yourself
Mhm.
because this whole process is going to be, like I said, trial by fire. It's trial and error.
Right.
You're going to fail sometimes.
Yeah.
And we live in a culture that doesn't allow for failure anymore.
Right.
And so like, in society,
Yeah.
um but failure is how you grow.
Yes.
Failure is you can't be better if you don't make mistakes because
Right.
that's how you learn.
You learn
So
the
you're
only real failure is a mistake you didn't learn something from.
yes. um
These
so
are wise words of wisdom with Meg.
yeah. But when you try and, just like I say, like with my systems, like if you try a new system or if you try a new mask, or unmask,
Mhm.
it's it's okay to fail. Like
Yeah.
it's not going to be the end of the world, and like you're gonna make it. It's just it sucks in the moment though. Like
And what rings through my head now in Stephanie's voice is, what is the worst thing that will actually happen from this?
that's another
This is
one
not
from my
Armageddon,
therapist
which is
that I
what,
like to repeat a lot. What's the worst that could happen?
yeah,
And like legitimately think about that.
yeah,
Like really take a step back and think, what is the worst that could happen? Most of the time, people will think you're weird, and that's about the worst that can happen.
right. And that's not like on the same level as Armageddon, even if your brain is telling you so.
Yes.
But also, too, remember that not everybody is going to accept the unmasked you, and that's okay. Unmasking is, oop, I think you're frozen, so I'm going to wait a second. Okay. I don't know what keeps happening. The Wi-Fi is solid.
I don't
Is
know either.
everything?
We'll get the hang
Awesome.
of this eventually.
Eventually, you're here for the ride.
Yeah.
Um, so I had said, remember, not everyone is going to accept the unmasked you, and that's okay. Unmasking is kind of like minimalism. As you unmask, it gets a lot easier to see who is genuinely with you and who isn't.
Yep.
It's much less bullshit because unmasking typically repels all the people who only want the masked you. It forces you to be yourself, which then leaves you no choice but to surround yourself with those who fully accept and love you for your authentic self. And let me tell you, that's awesome. Um, don't focus on all the people who judge you or try to make you feel less than.
Mm-hmm.
Those people aren't your people. Because of
Yes.
your unmasking, they've shown you they don't appreciate your authentic self. You only deserve the people who will, and the more quickly you can forget about those who don't, the faster you'll find those people.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I cut out a lot of people from my life,
Yeah.
including family. Um, like an entire side of my family, basically.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because they didn't want the unmasked me. And, you know, kind of sucked in the moment. It, realizing that they didn't want the authentic me.
Right.
But I also have an entire other side of my family. And like,
Mm-hmm.
I have John's whole family, and I
Yeah.
have my family that I've chosen with my friends.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I'm not low on people. So like,
Exactly. Exactly.
um, you know, why have that negativity in your life when you have plenty of other positivity?
Yeah.
And if you feel really alone right now, um, there there are probably a lot more people who care about you than you think.
Right.
And sometimes it's just a matter of reaching out. It's another thing
Yeah.
is with masking. I was also one of my masking things is not asking for help, you know?
Ah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so it's really hard for me to ask for help, but learning to ask like ask one person for help, one person who you feel really close to,
Right.
or one person who, I mean, you could reach out to either one of us, even like
Right.
we'll listen.
Well,
Um,
listen.
we'll at least listen. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, we can't, solve all the problems in the world or in your
No.
world even,
But if I have
as much as
advice,
we'd
I'll
like
give it.
to, but we're here to listen. So,
I'm good at
um,
seeing both sides. Oh, what's that word? I'm good at being objective. I'm good at seeing
yeah,
both sides
yep,
because I've played out both sides in my head.
yes. um, and I'm really good at just repeating what my therapist tells me.
Hey, there. I mean, it works. It works, and we
So
all can
you'll
benefit.
you'll get a lot of, how does that make you feel? No, you won't. You'll get a lot of um a lot of well, what's the worst that can happen?
Right.
And yeah, fuck it.
Yes.
She says that a lot too.
Yes.
She's a great therapist, in case anybody was
I
wondering.
love her. Love.
That's why I've been with her for like 10 plus years.
That's awesome.
So,
So our next tip is going to be thankful for every part of your unmasking journey.
mhm,
Because unmasking is a process that unfortunately not every neurodivergent person will get to experience.
mhm,
It can be quite exhausting at times, but at least you are able to unmask it all. Sadly, some people live their entire lives never knowing why they felt so different. Like, especially older generations where none of this stuff was like known about or talked about.
yeah,
Many just accepted the heavy burden of masking as a part of normal adult life, never realizing that a lot of others around them also aren't experiencing the same thing.
yeah,
Most never see the weight of the burden they carry. But now, like, if you knew nothing about it before this episode, now you know that life doesn't have to feel so hard after all, and you can stop guilting yourself for not being able to live up to your neurotypical expectations.
exactly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't have much to say after that. That
That's
was really
okay.
well done. That
So,
was very well done.
thank you. What we can do creative activities that bring you more in touch with your authentic self. Okay.
Yes.
Yes. So doing activities that fuel your creativity is an amazing way to get back in touch with the real you. Maybe you like painting, playing music, cooking, drawing pet portraits. When you're doing these activities, completely toss aside any ideas you have about what the things you create are supposed to look like. Your creativity is completely up to you, and it isn't about fitting any certain mold. You have to give yourself permission to fail. Be messy. There's only one way to get better, and that's keep creating and never give up.
Yep. Um, yeah. So actually, the one of the things that really got me was got me started was actually in 2020 when we went into lockdown and we were closed down for 6 weeks. And at the time I was grooming. So grooming was closed down for 6 weeks. I had no job to do.
Right.
Like I didn't have the school, even like the school wasn't even on my mind at that moment.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
other than one day I'd like to have a school.
Oh,
Like that was as far as it went. So I didn't have any other job to do.
right.
And I was so bored. I didn't know what to do with myself.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I had this time. I didn't have to go out and be with people. I
Hmm.
had energy because I didn't have to waste it on everything else living.
Right. Right.
um and I was so bored, and finally I pulled out paints and I started, well, it started with I painted all of my walls
Yeah.
in my house just to get it done. Um and then I was still bored, so I pulled out all of my old paints from when I used to paint miniature models for
Hmm. Hmm.
games, and I painted all of my light switches. Like all of my light switch covers.
Yeah.
I painted them in my house. I actually brought all of them with me to the new house. So if you walk around my house, you'll see random light switches that are painted.
I love
Um,
it.
and so I painted all the light switches. And then I'm like, I still have time. So I painted murals. I did like 4 murals in my house.
Yeah.
Um, like I just went nuts painting just anything I could get my
Yep.
fucking hands on.
Yep.
Um, and like that really helped to spark some creativity and get going on like this learning my authentic self. Um, and at the same time, I also got more in because all we could do when we went out was really go out in nature. So I
Yeah.
started getting more into that's when I started getting more into learning how to forage.
Yeah.
Um, which I had done a little bit when I was younger, but I hadn't gotten as into it because, you know, life.
Life.
Um,
Hmm.
but I started learning and I was like, fuck, this is awesome. And like,
Yeah.
yeah, I like it really brought out more of what who I was.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then one other thing I was gonna say is uh also try to allow yourself to indulge your inner child.
Mm. Hmm. Hmm.
Um and like first of all, this isn't kink related, but I would like to explain that so like a lot of times you see in like kink there is um the people who like it's like the dad and child or mom and child kind
Mm.
of thing.
Yeah.
Um
It's
and
not
people,
always a sex thing, though.
that's the thing is like most of the time it's not a sex thing.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of research into these things. I find the culture
Yeah.
of kink super interesting be, because it usually has something to do with psychology. Um, and that's the thing is a lot of these people who get into this kink, they've learned that indulging their inner child by playing this, or
Yeah.
indulging their like inner caretaker, like a lot of times, so like there's like the babies or
Yeah.
the kids
Yeah.
and they're indulging their inner child. And usually, yeah, there's very little actual sex related.
Right. It's just
It's
like it's giving
them.
the responsibility to somebody else.
Yep. They're going here, you take care of everything. Because, and usually those people are people who they, like me, were an adult at a very young age.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
They didn't
they
really
never
get
got to
that.
have their full
Yeah.
childhood. And so they didn't know how to, like, they never went through feeling those feelings of
Right.
being a child.
Right.
And so a lot of like I know I crave like just like hugs and
Yeah.
like I don't like hugs normally, but like
Yeah.
especially like when I'm feeling overstimulated, like that's the first thing I want is like a big hug or like
Mhm.
to wrap, I like wrapping myself up
Yep.
or
Your little
something like that,
cocoon.
because like that was the closest I had to self-stimulation. I mean, that was my like self, not stimulation, self-soothing,
Hmm.
was like, even as a kid, like I would just like wrap myself up in a blanket like a burrito.
Right.
um
Right.
and so like a lot of these people who are in this kink community, actually there is a reason, and usually like the people who are like the adults in that dynamic, it's because they were usually more um uh they were forced into the, usually like the one I think about is like daddies.
Okay. Yeah.
So they were forced into this like box of masculinity,
Hmm. Hmm.
um and they're actually very sensitive people who just want to like pour their love into something,
Right.
basically. um and so that's why they like taking into that caretaker position of like,
Yep.
yes, I'm going to be your everything, I'm going to take care of you,
Yep.
like you are, like you're safe, I'm going to keep you safe, I'm your protector, but like I'm also super, I'm going to be super gentle with you, I'm going to be sensitive with you.
Right.
And that's a
Right.
lot of times where that is like, it's not so much a sexual thing is
Right.
as it is, I just need to have this time to let my inner child out.
Yeah.
um and yeah, so it the reason I bring it up is like, you don't necessarily have to go into kink to allow your inner child to come out. Things that you could do are like build a fort. I like
Yeah.
to build a fort once in a while.
Yeah.
Just like, it's my little fort. I don't know. It just makes me happy.
Right.
But it's just like indulging in your inner child. Do things, play with a fucking kid's toy.
Yeah.
Kids' toys are awesome. Like, first of all, um, like one of the things that I love to do, like when I'm feeling stressed, is to like during a time when the store is not super busy,
Hmm.
go to like fucking Target and check out all the goddamn toys.
Yep. Yep.
Push all the buttons, and like I just like will be my like unmasked self just in there like, oh my god, this
Yeah.
is so cool.
Yeah.
It's a little easier when there are children with you. Um
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
but usually people don't care if an adult is in there just like pushing buttons and shit. Like,
Well, and honestly, that ties in well with the last tip, which is when you're ready, show off the unmasked you to the world. This
yes.
is the hardest and scariest step, but it's also the most rewarding and liberating one, as you just described.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's okay if it takes you a while to get here, and if you're not even fully there in some aspects and maybe fully in others.
Mm-hmm.
When you have the courage to be nothing but yourself, both you and the world benefit so much from that. Just
Mm-hmm.
make sure you don't wait too long to do this because after all, YOLO,
Yeah.
like you only have one life, like
Yeah. um
might as well
and
enjoy it.
you know s- start by showing off to your tribe.
There you go.
um
Yep.
a lot of I think a lot of the issues with the world today is that we lost that community dynamic of
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
the it takes a village thing.
Yes.
Like, it's not it hasn't always been that like it was a mom, dad, and two kids.
Right.
Like, that's not how it's always been. It, like, for the longest time, and you still see it in a lot of cultures. I think like Italian, I see it in uh some Hispanic cultures,
Hmm. Hmm.
Mexican comes to mind, where they have like multiple generations of people living together and they
Yeah.
take care of each other.
Yeah.
um you know I always joke that I could never live with my father, but like I do crave that, like that communityness.
Right.
I always say I want to build a commune
I was
with all
literally
my
going to be
friends.
like, that's why we're doing a commune.
Yeah. Like, it was like, I had so, like, it was so great to have Meg and Joe here during the summer. I miss you guys so much.
Oh,
But just even like I didn't even need you guys to do anything, but just having you here
yeah.
felt I felt like had I I didn't feel like the whole weight of the world was on my shoulders
Oh,
like I
yeah,
do like sometimes like when I'm by myself like oh and I like look at my house and I'm like it's so big and I have to take care of this whole thing like
yeah.
it's just me and John taking care of this whole thing
Oh,
and it's like if I had more people here
yeah.
like we could all that's how it's supposed to be.
Well, I mean, we are coming back
Yeah.
to the
uh
area, so we could
we
possibly
better.
set up an arrangement again. But
Anytime.
okay,
But yeah, it is like reach out to your tribe
yeah,
because and if your tribe happens to be the Facebook group, that's totally fine.
yeah. I'll
Um
be
but
anybody's
you
tribe.
don't have to do it alone either.
Yeah.
Um it's it's not all for one and one for all or
We're
whatever.
here for you.
Yes. So
Well,
now
with
it
all
just went
that
on
being
and
said, I
on
think
and
we've had a pretty fantastic discussion on what masking is, what causes it, the effects of it, how to unmask, examples of unmasking, tips, and
mm-hmm.
plenty of personal experience that we are still personally experiencing.
Yes. um what was I gonna say? I would like to apologize to anybody if we don't know, obviously, in this moment, what the recording sounds like exactly with the little
We had like three
issues.
technical snafus, and if I can excerpt them, I will. Otherwise, and my
It
little
it
lead
might
in
be a little rough.
the lead in I record is also going to be like, by the way,
Yeah.
there might be a couple
Um
little blips.
yeah. But yeah, just we're working on figuring out Meg's Wi-Fi situation while they are on the road.
Yeah. Yeah, we're getting it. We're
We'll
getting it.
get there and we'll once you get the hang of it, we can start working on
Yeah.
doing more recordings.
Yes,
But
indeed.
right now, because of the sporadicness of it, while you figure things out, it'll
I'll be good
be
in Florida for sure because
yeah.
I'll have Beth's house. But anyways, with all that being said, thank you for being here with us today. And yeah, we can,
Yay!
because I have the outro, so we can
Oh
stop.
yeah, cool. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Where's the record button?